Welcome back to Retrogaming, everyone. Now, first off, I would like to thank everyone who voted in the poll on Facebook for the next episode. Thank you everyone for your support. It was a close match, but the game that pulled through was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, before we start playing, we'll take a quick history lesson of these famous turtles. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were first created in November of 1983 by comic artists Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. They were originally drawn to be a parody of the Marvel superhero Daredevil, but later they decided to turn their little joke into a comic of their own. Then in May of 1984, their first comic was printed, but in black and white, and they only made 3,000 copies due to budget, and surprisingly, they sold out within a few weeks. Also, all the turtles originally wore red bandanas. It wasn't until later, around 1986, that they changed them to a different color for each turtle. Blue for Leonardo, purple for Donatello, orange for Michelangelo, and red for Raphael. It was obvious that the turtles were a huge hit, and they eventually decided to begin attracting younger audiences. And they started to appear in various forms of other media. Comics, books, Saturday morning TV shows, and even appearing on the silver screen. And of course, video games. Trust me, there are many Ninja Turtle video games. I don't have time to talk about all of these, so I'll just do a quick overview of each. The most popular video game that most people remember is the arcade game by Konami in 1989. This game allowed you to play with 3 other people in order to work together to stop the Shredder from his evil schemes once again. There was one recently released in 2013 for the 360, Wii, and 3DS, based on the Nickelodeon TV show. This one is really fun. I definitely recommend picking this one up. There are the 2 16-bit games, one being the Hyperstone Heist for the Sega Genesis, and the other one is TMNT 4 Turtles in Time for the Super Nintendo. Both of these games are very similar, but Turtles in Time is the more memorable game out of these two, and it's the one that most people have played. Last, there were 3 games made for the NES, one being a remake of the arcade game along with 2 additional levels added to it. And there's the Manhattan Project, where the Turtles are interrupted by Shredder on their vacation, and they need to return to save it, along with April. Perhaps one day I'll review some of these games in greater detail. And of course there's this one. The first game of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles released for the NES in 1989. I'm going to focus on this Ninja Turtle game today. Most people claim this an upset. Others say it's not bad. It's just challenging. Well, which is it? What's the real deal? Well, let's find out. Okay, now we're playing with Turtle Power. But in reality, it's more like a brownout version of Turtle Power. Because this game is considered very infamous to most gamers. After only being released a few months after the original arcade game, little did the developers know they've created one of the most hardest games on the NES, alongside Ninja Gaiden and Ghosts and Goblins. So basically, the story begins with introducing us to the 4 turtles and showing that April O'Neil has been captured by Shredder and the Foot Clan. So it's up to the turtles to go out and rescue her and stop Shredder's plans. Pretty basic and cliche for a Turtles game, so nothing too special. So now let's move into the gameplay. So, the first thing you'll notice about the gameplay is, unlike the other Ninja Turtle games, which all can be at least 2 players or more, this one is only a 1-player game, which is a real disappointment considering how hard this game is. One of those reasons is that the enemies respawn. Now this is common in games, but some of these levels are so overcrowding with enemies that it makes it very difficult to make it all the way through them. Now if you pause the game, you can switch out any of the 4 turtles at any time, and each turtle has their own life bar, but it's very hard to replenish your health, because the pizza boxes in this game are very scarce, and you have to go out of your way to find them, even if it means jumping to hard to reach places. And because of those reasons, you're more than likely to lose a turtle sooner or later. Just make sure it's not Donatello or Leonardo. I'll explain why in a minute. Now when you switch between the 4 turtles, there's no difference between them except for their weapons, and each one has their own individual health bar, like I mentioned earlier. So if one turtle is low on health, just switch him out for another one who has more. You'll know you're running low because you'll hear a warning sound that'll tell you your turtle's in danger of dying. Now Leonardo and Donatello both end up being the most powerful fighters in the game because they both use long-range weapons. So they will be your most used turtles. Michelangelo is good for clearing out small enemies on the ground since Leonardo and Donatello can't reach them that well. Raphael is the poorest fighter in the game because his size have such a short range and attack power they can't do much damage to powerful enemies and stage bosses. I'd say have Raphael get an item and have him use that instead. Obviously the designers did not make this game balance between the 4 turtles. Big mistake and fun killer in my opinion. So what are these items? Well, every couple enemies you wipe out, occasionally an item will drop and you can pick it up and use it as a secondary weapon. Now each turtle can hold a different secondary weapon, and each weapon has an ammo supply. So be sure to use it wisely, or it will run out and you'll have to find a new one. When you have a secondary weapon, you can select between your default weapon and your secondary weapon by pressing the select button. Then press B to use it. The only complaint I have with the controls is the A button, which is used for jumping and swimming. Some of the jumps in this game are way too hard, and it's hard to make your mark with the jump button. It's either too delayed or too responsive. You either jump too low or too high. It has to be this one specific spot you have to jump from in order to make your mark. Otherwise you fall and you have to work your way back to the ledge to try again. And when you're in the underwater stage trying to defuse the bombs, sometimes the A button is delayed and you can't get moving fast enough in order to dodge some of the stage hazards. So sooner or later you're going to take damage, and a lot of it. The graphics are nothing special in this game. I will say the levels do look well detailed, but not well designed, with some of the impossible jumps as I just mentioned. And some of the enemies in the game have nothing to do with Ninja Turtles, like Fire Freaks, Chainsaw Maniacs, Robos, Roof Leapers. I don't remember any of these from the show. I didn't make any of those names up, by the way. That's what it says in the manual. The turtles are bland, just the same avatar, just different colored bandanas, and their weapons are really badly drawn. And if I remember correctly, Shredder in the cartoons was purple, not red. They can't even get that right. That's already a bad sign. Finally, sound. Now the sound effects are nothing special either, and it could have used a little bit more variety. For an example, it's the same sound every time you hit something. And it gets really boring after about 5 minutes of it. Although, I will give them credit for giving all the turtles a different sound effect for each of their weapons. The one thing that saves this game, though, is the music. The music is really enjoyable. It has that Ninja Turtles feel to it. And if you manage to make it to the final world, you're treated to a different overworld and interior theme to listen to. It gives you that feeling that you're closing in on victory. Although I'm pretty sure the most infamous tune is this one. Ah yeah, Rage Quit. Now it's time to rate the game. Now, the storyline for this game is very cliche. I know that the ending to this game is not all that great either. So they definitely could have done way better with the story. It gets a 1 out of 10. The difficulty of this game is very high, and the game itself is not balanced. Spots are overcrowded with enemies, impossible jumps, and it's very hard to replenish your health. So the first time playing, you're going to struggle a lot. So for this legendary difficulty gameplay, it gets a 2 out of 10. The graphics are okay, but not the best. The part where they stand out is the levels, but not the characters. So for getting it half right, it gets a 5 out of 10. The sound effects are bland, but the music is good in this game. And it is worth listening to. So because of that, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. The control is not terrible, but because of that stubborn A button, it gets a 7 out of 10. As far as replayability goes, I don't like to play this too often. And personally, I think most people wouldn't want to play it at all. So for replayability, it gets a 4 out of 10. Now, after summing up all the scores, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES gets a total score of 4 out of 10. So conclusion? This game is most likely the worst Ninja Turtles game ever made. The only people I'd recommend this to is if you're a die-hard Turtles fan and you at least want to add this to your collection, or if you enjoy torturing yourself. So just take your chances with this game if you pick it up. Actually, you know what? Just play Turtles in Time or Hyperstone Heist instead. Thanks for watching, everyone. Catch you next time.